Morning. Welcome to Zoho Meeting webinars. Today, we're going to see about how to use Zoho Meeting as your online meeting and webinar tool. Let's see how you can interact with us today. As an attendee of the webinar, you will all be in listen and view only mode. I hope my voice is clear and audible to everybody. You can also give a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you have any technical difficulty in hearing and viewing my screen. And if you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to ask them in the Q&A option on your screen. And here we have our experts who will respond to your questions throughout the session. As an introduction about myself, this is Kavitha from Zoho Meeting team, and I will be your presenter for today's webinar. I'm an expertise in this online meeting and webinar tool and have an experience of 3 years in this video conferencing platform. Now, let's see the agenda for today's session. I'm going to start with a brief introduction about Zoho Meeting and how should we use it. With the demonstration of the new version, I will give you a complete walkthrough of Zoho Meeting. Then, we're going to see some scenarios to get an overview on how exactly the module works. Followed by this, we will learn how to set up your account with your corporate branding, add users, and associate profiles. Finally, I'll wrap up the session with the roadmap to show you some of the upcoming features in online meeting and webinar solutions. Now, we will see a brief introduction about our online meeting software. What is an online meeting? Online meeting is a collaborative session with real-time audio, video, and screen sharing. You can initiate or join meetings from anywhere and also collaborate effectively with the moderator controls. So, this online meeting module will be most helpful if you'd like to conduct a conference or if you want to engage in a remote work, and also you can provide remote clinical services to your patients. Now that we have understood how Zoho Meeting can be used as a video conferencing tool, now let's see about the overview of Zoho Meeting. This is the home screen of Zoho Meeting, where you can see the Meet Now and Schedule button in order to get a quick access to your online meetings. And whenever quick decisions are needed, you can conduct instant meetings from anywhere using the Meet Now button. So right now, I'm going to start an instant meeting and invite the participants in my ongoing session. So this takes you to the meeting window, and this is how the presenter screen of the meeting window looks like. Now let me show you how a participant joins the session. If you'd like to invite someone on your ongoing session, you need not to go back to your meeting details page to fetch the meeting ID, because Zoho Meeting provides an option to invite the participants by copying the link or send an invite right from the meeting window. And here I have copied the link and I'm going to join as a participant for the same meeting. When the participant tries to join the meeting from the browser, it will not ask the participant to download any application because it is going to join the session from the browser itself. So here comes the device selection prompt page where the participant needs to choose their audio and video sources of their choice and select them as the devices for the online meeting. And moreover, they can also join the meeting using the phone audio. What is phone audio? It allows them to dial in from their mobile phone using the dial-in numbers given for the respective countries along with the access code. But right now, I'm going to go for the computer audio and click on Done. And this is how the participant screen looks like. Now let's come back to the presenter screen. On the bottom menu bar, you will be provided with a list of tools and tabs with its respective features. Let's go for the participants tab. So here you can see the list of the participants' names, those who have joined the session. Using the more actions provided next to each participant, you can see certain options and controls. Now, let's see them one by one. Here you can replace their official names with their nicknames using the rename option. The second option is one of the moderator controls provided within the session. This give control option will be enabled only when you do a screen share. And it is nothing but a remote access by providing your mouse and keyboard control to your participants. The third one is to remove the participants from the session when they are no longer part of the discussion. And here we have an option to make a participant as a co-host within the session itself. For example, if you're having any other work or have to jump on to another meeting, you can quickly make any of your participants as a co-host and leave the session. Now, coming to the mute icon, you can use the individual mute icon provided next to each participant or else the mute all button to mute them in a single click. And you can also have the search, sort, and the filter icon to easily categorize your attendees. Now, coming to the meeting title, if you have started an instant meeting, the session will be titled after your name. But here you can make use of the edit icon to change the meeting title as per your requirement. Now, let's move on to the next tab, chat. Here you can have a collaborative communication among your participants using this public chat. And in order to enhance the ease of access, we have provided a tab view to easily navigate the chat, notes, and the polls from the participants tab itself. Now, coming back to the chat, the participant will also have an option to chat with the presenter as well as with the other participants. The meeting chat is actually powered by Zoho Click, through which you can send out the images, share files, and documents using this attachment icon. And if you're muted during the meeting to avoid any interruption, here you can make use of the microphone icon to send out voice messages through the chat itself. Now, let's move on to the next tab, Notes. We have introduced the built-in notes feature that is actually powered by Zoho Notebook. So using this, you can take down any important lectures and points that has been discussed during your online session. Now, let's move on to the final tab, that is polls. We have introduced the polls in online meeting through which you can conduct a quick survey during the meeting or in your conference. So here as a presenter, you can create a set of questions, surveys, opinions using this poll and where the participants will be able to respond to it. Here I have already created three sets of polls. So let me going to start the session, start the poll here and where the participants will have a prompt on their respective page. So once they have responded, the results will be immediately given on the presenter screen. Now, let's move on to the start sharing. Screen sharing is an essential part of collaborating during the online meeting. Anyone in a meeting can share their screen with other participants. So here we have entire screen sharing, application, and a Chrome tab sharing. The Chrome tab sharing allows you to select the tab and you'd also be able to see the preview of the window that you would like to share. Besides sharing the screen, you can now also be able to share only the certain documents, slides, and play videos in your conference. Now let's see about it. So here comes the session material option through which you can upload your PDF, PPT, and the video files while scheduling an online meeting. So these files will be shown in your library so that you can attach them and play them in your online session. So here I'm showing a PDF file here and click on the share now option. So once the PDF file is shared, I will also be able to move in and move out here. And from the participant side, they will be having an option of zooming in and zooming out in order to get a detailed view about the document that you are sharing. Now, let's step on to the whiteboard. What is a whiteboard? This is a visual collaboration tool which helps you when you are in the remote work. So let's say if you're explaining a tedious application through a demo, you can use this respective whiteboard to design a workflow about that application so that you can make your participants to understand about the product easily. So as you see, the participants will also be able to collaborate on the whiteboard shared by the presenter. So the interesting part is this one. So this tool will help your participants by providing the communication very much easier. Now let's close this and now let's learn about the reactions and raise hand. The purpose of these features is to make the session to be more interactive and engaging. The participants and the presenter can now raise their hands in order to clarify their concerns. And additionally, they can also react when someone is speaking during the session. Now, let's move on to more options provided. From the more options, you can change the settings of your current meeting and use the other moderator controls provided within the session. I've already seen a moderator control that is remote access from participants tab. The other one we are going to see here is lock meeting. What is lock meeting? In order to conduct a secure online meeting and to minimize the interruptions, you can make use of this lock meeting feature. So through this, you can make your meetings more confidential to keep them secure from unexpected attendees. So you will be notified when someone tries to enter your meeting, so you can let them in only if you want to. Right now, I'm going to show you a sample on how exactly this lock meeting feature is going to work. So after I have enabled the lock meeting option, I'm going to join as another participant for the same meeting. As you see, the participant has got a page stating that the meeting is logged and waiting for an approval. Now, when you come back to the presenter screen, the presenter has a pop-up in order to accept or reject the entry. So the participant will not be able to join the session even though if they have the join link. But once the participant gets approval from the presenter, then they can join the session. So you can also use this lock meeting option as a waiting room for your meeting. Now, let's move on to recording. You can record all your meetings to watch them online later, and also you can share it with the members who couldn't attend your meeting. And when you start recording the session, the participants will have a message stating that recording in progress due to privacy reasons. And moreover, I have enabled auto recording functionality for my meeting, so the session starts to record automatically without my intervention. And we have introduced an option to pause and resume the recording. For example, if you don't want to record any part of your session, you can use this respective option. Now, let's move on to virtual background. Using the virtual background, you can easily change the background or disable the same in your ongoing session. We have also now introduced an option to add the custom images of your choice and apply them as a background in your online sessions. Now, before we step on to the picture in picture, I'm going to collate this feature based on a scenario. Here comes the scenario one. We have a presenter who got stuck with a meeting and another important work to do at the same time. What will the presenter do now? In this situation, Zoho Meeting provides this picture in picture mode where the video feeds and the shared screen will be shown in any application or browser if you move away from the meeting. You will get an option to mute or unmute the audio and video, and also have an option to end the meeting in this mode. So, this provides a floating window that can be dragged to any corner. So, through this, you can stay attentive to the meeting while engaged with any other work on some other site. Now, let's come back to the more options. We have a tool called the network performance, which will allow you to calculate the performance of your network and how come the bandwidth optimization is taking place in your account. And also, the audio and the video settings provided on the more options allows you to change the devices of your current session. So, without ending the meeting, you can modify the devices within the session itself. We also have the multiple layouts option to which you can view the video feeds in gallery view, active speaker, and also the sidebar. And here are the preferences through which you can have an option of enabling or disabling according to your choice. This is how you need to conduct an instant meeting. And once you're done with the meeting, you can click on the exit button to end the meeting for all of your participants. All right. So as of now, we saw on how to conduct an online meeting. Now we are going to learn a few things in Zoho Meeting based on scenarios. Here comes the scenario two. Let's imagine we have a business HR who had conducted a meeting with his colleagues and looking for a way to access the notes taken down during the session. So here, Zoho Meeting provides an option to collect the notes at the session summary. At the end of every meeting, the chat conversation done during the session can also be downloaded, and you can also view the notes taken down during the session. So instead of searching for these details, you can easily get it access to from the session summary itself. Now, let's move on to scenario 3. Here we have a product manager who wants to schedule a meeting with his colleague and his product client. So for this, you need to access the homepage of Zoho Meeting and click on the schedule button. So as of now, we have learned about how to start an instant meeting. So now we are going to schedule an upcoming meeting in advance. So here comes the scheduling page where you need to give a suitable topic for your meeting and a detailed description in the agenda. Once it is given, choose the date, time, and the duration on how long the meeting has to be hosted. And by default, you will be the presenter of the meeting that you schedule. But you can also use the drop down option to assign the presenter role to other members from your organization. Now, coming to the participant field, here you can select and invite the members directly from your Zoho contacts. What is Zoho Contacts? We have done an internal integration with Zoho Contacts where you can import your primary and secondary contacts from Gmail, Outlook, and even from a sheet. So once the contacts are uploaded, it will be reflected in the Zoho Contacts listing here. And when you start typing in the participant name here, It will provide you in the auto suggestion list. So you need not to type the entire email address where you can easily select them out. And once the meeting is scheduled, these participants will receive an invitation email along with a join button in it. The email invitations you sent out to your participants will have an RSVP section. So through this, you can know how many participants will be joining a meeting before you actually begin it. So this is how an invite sent to the participants looks like. They will also have a join meeting button to join the meeting at the scheduled time. Now we go for scenario 4. Here we have a managing director of a company who wants to discuss the work progress on each and every month with his employees. This, you need not to create a meeting for each and every month individually because Zoho Meeting provides an option to create recurring meetings from more options. Enable the recurring meeting here, and here you need to choose the frequency, whether it has to be a daily, weekly, or a monthly meeting. You need to specify when and how the meeting should repeat and when it should end. So this schedules the events and recurrences with the same link for the entire series. So the participants can use the same link to join the session on each and every month. Now let's see about the co-host. We have already seen an option to make a participant as a co-host within the session itself. Now what about this option? This option will allow you to make your organization user as a co-host before you start the meeting. So let's say you can add your organization users to start the meeting as a co-host on your stead. They have most of the controls just like the presenter of the meeting. If you're not available that day or not having an access to your laptop, the co-host can start the meeting on your stead. Besides, you can also set reminders like how long before the reminder email has to be sent. Through this, you can make sure that everybody makes it to your meeting on time before it starts. And as already mentioned, here you can upload the PDF, PPT, and the video files in the session material so that it reflects in your file library when you are in an online meeting. So now let me show you how it actually works. So once done with the scheduling of meeting, you can click on the schedule button here, which will take you to the meeting details page. Here you can see the complete details about the presenter, topic of the meeting, and invited participants from here. Now, let me walk you through what are all the different ways for a participant to join the meeting. If you don't remember the email ID of a participant while scheduling a meeting, you can simply ask the participants to visit meet.zoho.com and ask them to enter the meeting ID and the password provided here. And the second way is actually a simplest way where you can simply copy the link and send it from your personal email or messaging apps. And here, for security reasons, all the meetings you schedule will be password protected. The password will be auto-filled and cloaked on the join link URL where they need not to enter the password manually whenever they are trying to join the meeting. Now let's go for the third way, which is only for the invitees who can use the join meeting button sent along with the meeting invite. Now coming back to the details page, here at the right side, you can see the edit button where you can reschedule the meeting to postpone the session or do any modifications like inviting more participants as well. Unfortunately, if you're not available throughout the day to conduct the scheduled meeting, you can also go for canceling the session using the cancel option. Now, let's talk about how the events will be added to your calendar. By default, all the meetings you schedule will be automatically saved on your email calendar. For example, if you are a Zoho Mail user, it will be added on your Zoho calendar. If you are a Gmail user, it will be added on your Google calendar. And if you are an Outlook user, it will be added on your Outlook calendar. Besides, we also have an option of the embed widget. So what is embed widget? If you're having a website or a portal, you can simply embed the join link URL as a widget using the iframe code provided so that anyone can join your ongoing meeting by simply entering their email address. So once done with the scheduling of the session, you can either start the meeting from your meeting account using the start meeting option. If not, you can use the presenter invite that you have received whenever the meeting is scheduled. So this is how you can schedule a meeting in Zoho Meeting. Here comes the last scenario. Some of you would like to want the previous meeting to be conducted again. This, you need not to create a new one by filling the details all over again. Because in order to achieve this, we have provided in the meetings module here. So access the meetings module and go for the past meeting listing, which will help you with an option of repeating the meeting right from here. In addition to this, you can also join the meeting if you have been invited by any organization user. You can go to the upcoming listing and select invited meetings from the drop-down. So this will help you with the join meeting button where you can join the session directly from your Zoho meeting account. So this will help you to save the time instead of searching for the join link from your inbox and from your calendar. And moreover, we have completely revamped the meeting listing page in order to enhance the mode of access. For example, if you'd like to search for any meeting, you can use the search option and sort it based on title, date, as well as the date range. Right. So now it's time for some Q&A. Please use the Q&A tab to ask your questions, and here we have a dedicated person to assist you with the queries. So currently we saw about how to conduct the meetings and schedule the session. So please do let us know if you have any questions about it. And in the meantime, we will move on to the next topic on how to schedule the webinars. Before we get on to this, let's have a brief introduction about our webinar software. What is a webinar? It is an online training session where you can virtually present your screen in presence of your co-organizers and your attendees. So since it is a real-time session where you can keep your attendees engaged by launching polls, answering Q&A, playing videos, presenting slides and documents. So here comes the difference between an online meeting and a webinar, because online meeting is a collaborative session, whereas Zoho webinar will be a training session. So using our webinar tool, you can conduct your webcasting, online events, workshop, or a training session. And for an example, if you're giving a product demo or an application review, this tool will be most useful for you. Now, let's see the overview of the webinar module. Moving back to the homepage of Zoho Meeting, click on the Webinars tab. So it will show you the list of your upcoming and your past webinars. And we have also now introduced an option to broadcast now your webinar. So the broadcast now allows you to commence a webinar immediately without having to schedule it beforehand. Now, let me show you how to create a webinar in advance. You need to click on the schedule button here, and here comes the scheduling page. Now you can design your webinar planning in a step-by-step process. The first step is scheduling, where you need to give a suitable topic for your webinar, brief explanation of the major points that you will cover in the description. Moreover, we have also now introduced an option to clone the webinar from your past sessions. Here, without filling the details all over again, here you need to choose the records that has to be cloned, so that the details of the past webinar will be automatically applied to your current webinar. So on to using this clone webinar, you can completely avoid redoing your work. Now, let's jump on to the recurring webinar option. Here you can create the recurring webinar to make the webinar happen on multiple occurrences. Like meeting, here we have provided an additional option called custom option. For example, if you'd like to conduct the same webinar on the same date with different times, you can use this option. And moreover, from the registration type, here you can decide whether you need a single registration for a series of webinar or an individual registration for a recurring webinar. So this is the scheduling of the first process. So once it is done, you can go for the next option. The second option is co-organizers. While hosting a webinar, you can lighten your load by adding co-organizers to your session. You can add as many co-organizers for your webinar, and they need not to have a Zoho Meeting account for it. They can launch the webinars and also use the other controls provided by the organizer. Now, let me show you how a co-organizer invite looks like. So this is how the email invite looks like. They can use this join webinar button to join the session at the scheduled time. Now, let's discuss about what a co-organizer can do. The co-organizer can co-host the presentation. They can answer the questions from your attendees, launch polls, record webinars, and also make an attendee to speak during the webinar. So once you have provided the first and the second step, you can go for the next to add the further details, or else you can click on the skip and finish to step into the final process. So it will take you to the webinar details page where you can see the complete details of all your webinar and also the topic of the webinar and the description. So these details can also be added while scheduling, or you can do the customization whenever you want from the webinar details page. Now, let me walk you through the registration setup. When you create a webinar, it provides a unified webinar link from the share option. And we have two different types of setup. One is with and another one is without registration. So what is with registration? Here you can make the attendees to join the session only after they register for the webinar. And let's see about without registration. The without registration is nothing but you can make the attendees to join the webinar directly without any registration process. All right. Now let me show you how these two setups will work. So here I'm going to copy the link from the share option. And once you roll out that link with your registrants, they will get a registration page. And this is how it looks like. It will have the form fields and have the logo uploaded at the top. And they will also be able to see the date and the time when the webinar is going to get started. And once they have filled out all the details, they will be taken to the default landing page, and this is how it looks like. They can join the webinar from this page and also add the events to these calendars. And moreover, they will also be getting the confirmation email if you have configured with registration. They will be having the join webinar button sent along with the email invite to join the session. And as an organizer, you can also manage and track the registrations from the details page. If you have got a lot of registrations, if you would like to see whomsoever has registered, you can access the details page and click on the total count. It will show you the approved list, how many registrants has registered, and you can easily review them here. If you have any last minute change, if you don't want any registrant to attend your webinar, you can also deny and cancel the registration from here. And before stepping into the webinar, if you'd like to get a complete list on a CSV file, you can also export the list right from here. All right. So we have seen how the registration process works. And now let's see about how without registration looks like. So I'm enabling the toggle without registration, and you need to copy the webinar link from the share option. Once you share it with any attendee, the attendee will have a page stating the option to fill name and the email address. So once they have given these details, they can click on the join webinar button to join the session at any time. So this is how the page looks like between the with registration and without registration. And this is how you need to set up the complete registration process for your webinar. All right. So now let's see some of the features in Zoho Webinar based on scenarios. Here comes the scenario one. A sports equipment company has organized a webinar to launch that new product. And for marketing purposes, the product marketer of this company is looking for a way to find the registrants where exactly they are coming from. To achieve this, Zoho Webinar provides you a feature called source tracking. So here comes a source tracking section where you will have an option to add a source. For example, if your source name is Facebook, you need to enter the name as Facebook here so that you will be getting a unified link for this respective source. So instead of copying the link from the share option, you need to copy the link from the Facebook option. So this link should be posted on your Facebook page where you will be getting a count on the number of visitors and the registrants right from here. So this feature will help you to get a valuable information from where you're getting a lot of leads and finally helps you in the business growth. Now let's move on to scenario 2. Here you're going to learn how to customize the email templates for the different emails sent to your registrants and attendees. So now we move on to the email section at the top. So this email section will allow you to customize the email templates to your audience during the entire course of your webinar. So when you click on the customize email option, it will take you to the email customization page. Here you can see an option to insert a plain text option, or else you can use the predefined templates that we have provided at the bottom. For an instance, let me show you a sample email invite which I have customized. So this is how it looks like, where you can customize it with your own branding by uploading your company logo, adding company profiles to let them know about your organization, And you can also attach the documents if you want to send it to your attendees. While customizing the email template, you can also set the reminders like how long before the reminder email has to be sent. So through this, you can make sure that the attendee joins the webinar at the right time. And you can also configure second and the third reminder emails, and where you will have an option to select how long before the reminder email has to be sent. Now, let's move on to scenario 3. Some of you would like to include the recording of the webinar to be sent to your absentees and attendees post your session. So for this, you need not to run a separate campaign by creating it manually, because Zoho Webinar allows you to set up the recording link in the follow-up email itself. Let me tell you how. So from the same email section, you will see a configure button next to the follow-up template. Here, you need to include the recording and select how long after the follow-up email has to be triggered. So once it is done, you can easily ensure whether the thank you email have the recording link and the customized template chosen it or not. For this, you need to access the customization portal and select attendees follow-up here. You will have an option to preview it, and where you will also have an option to clone the template here. So as you see, the recording placeholder has been already included, so that once the session gets over, the attendees will be getting the recording of your webinar as well. Now, let's move on to scenario 4. In this scenario, you're going to learn how to set up the restrictions for your registrations. When it comes to the registration, any number of people can register for your webinar. So we have come up with the new features to restrict the registrations based on domain, business email address, as well as with the country. For example, if you want the registrations only from India, you can enable the toggle and select India here. And moreover, you will also be able to block the registrations from certain countries. And here you can also set the limitation like the number of registrations has to be limited, so that once the webinar has reached the specified count, it will not further allow any registrations. And here we have already provided an option to avoid the spam registrations as well. When you enable this option here, the attendees will be forced to join the webinar only from the confirmation email, but not from the landing page here. Now, let's move on to the last scenario. In this scenario, you're going to learn how to keep your attendees engaged during the session and make your attendees to take right action after the webinar. To keep the attendees engaged during the session, here we have the engagement section here. Through this, you can also add the polls where we have the single choice, multiple choice, and the star rating poll, and also an option of adding an introductory video in the session material. So here comes the session files here, where you can upload it from your computer, or else if you have already access to those files, it will be available on the library. And moreover, if you are a work drive or a Zoho One user, you can upload it directly from your files and folders. All right. So now we move on to an important feature on keeping the attendees to be engaged after the session. So once the session gets over, attendees will be closing the tab and going to some other tabs. In order to avoid that, you can go for the post-webinar redirection and enter the URL where you want to direct your attendees once the session gets over. So using this, you can direct your attendees to your website at the end of your webinar to encourage them to sign up for your product or show them about your offers, and also provide ratings and feedbacks for your session. So all you need to do is just enable the toggle here and enter the URL where you want to redirect your attendees. So this is how you need to do the scheduling and the customization process. Now let's step on to the last stage on how to promote the webinar. Here you can see the webinar registration link that can be sent to your targeted audience via email, social media, and other messaging apps. Moreover, you can also drive the webinar registrations by embedding the registration form on web pages and blogs. Because we have provided this registration link in the form of iframe and the source code, so the people who visits your page will know about your webinar and they will register for it. And moreover, you can also promote your webinar with the Zoho campaigns integration with Zoho Webinar. And instead of moving away from the tool, you can share the webinar link in your social media profiles like Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So once done with the customization, you can start the webinar from the webinar portal using the start button. Now let me show you how to launch the webinar. So when you click on the start button, it will take you to the webinar launch page. And here you need to decide whether you're going to launch the webinar from your browser or else from your desktop app. Right now, I'm going to use the browser and I will be getting the launch page. So the launch page also have an option of the device selection pop-up, which will allow you to choose the devices that has been connected to your machine. Similar to meeting, you will also have the phone audio to dial in from your mobile phone given for the respective countries. So once done with the device selection, you can click on proceed. So this is how an organizer screen looks like. Now let me show you how a registrant joins the webinar as an attendee. So here I have already registered for this webinar and I'm going to click on the join webinar button. Attendees need not to download any application because they are going to use the browser to join the session. They will not have the device selection pop-up because they are going to join the session in listen and view only mode. The attendees need to click on the join now option and this is how an attendee screen looks like. Now we come back to the organizer screen. Though you have started the webinar, still you will get to have a practice session with your co-organizers before you actually begin it. So as you see, there is a start broadcast button, which means you're currently in the practice session mode. Until you click on this button, attendees will not be able to hear or see the audio, video, and screen. So as you see, the organizer has already turned on the video, but the attendee is still not able to view it. So the attendees will have a page stating that waiting for the webinar to broadcast. And once you're ready to present, you can click on the start broadcast option. And now the webinar will be broadcasted to all of your attendees. And from the bottom toolbar, you will be provided with a list of tools and tabs with its respective features. First, let's see for the attendees tab. The attendees tab contains a list of the attendees, those who have joined the session. And by default, they will all be in listen and view only mode. But you can make any attendee to communicate during the session by sharing the screen, showing the webcam, and talking. On doing this, it will make your session to be more interactive and engaging. Besides, attendees can also use raise an option as a signal in order to grab the attention of the organizer, just like a physical classroom. So as you see, there is a hand icon next to the respective attendee who has actually raised it. So based on this, you can give them the permission to speak during the session. And moreover, you will also be provided with a filter icon to easily categorize who have raised their hands and have been allowed to talk during the webinar. Now, let's move on to the Q&A. The webinar attendees can ask any questions throughout the session from the Q&A tab. And moreover, they will also have an option to ask the questions anonymously. So as you see, when they start typing in the questions, they will have the ask anonymously toggle here. Once it is given in ask anonymously mode, the organizer will not be able to see the attendee name on their Q&A tab. So from the organizer view, the organizer will have an option to answer the questions either privately or publicly. And if you have a bulk volume of questions to be answered, you can simply use the predefined template that we have provided. And as an organizer, here you can send out the useful messages or any links or an email address of your support right from this page. And you can also now assign the questions to your other co-organizers in order to simplify the answering process. And here you can also decline the questions if you find it unnecessary to your session. You can also set priority like high, medium, or low to make the answering process in priority. Now, let's move on to polls. In order to get a valuable insights from your audience, you can either create an instant poll using the add poll option, or else you can go for launching the poll using the start poll option. Once the poll has been launched, there will be a prompt on the attendee screen in order to respond to it. So once they have responded, the results will be instantly recorded on the organizer window. Now, let's move on to the more options. From the more options, you can record the webinar and send it to anyone who couldn't attend your session. And if you're organizing the webinar as a sales group, you can share the webinar recording as a product demo or helpful video for new users. And we have the auto recording functionality and having an option of pausing and resuming the recording if you don't want to record any part of your webinar. And similar to meeting, here we have the virtual background option to upload the custom background of your choice and the predefined images as your background. And moreover, you can also apply effects to the video feed to lighten up your face. To the picture in picture, we have introduced this picture in picture in webinar through which you can view the video feeds and the webinar controls in the floating window. And using the network performance, you can calculate the performance of your network and the other optimizations taken place. Right. So before we see other options, now we quickly jump onto a scenario. As of now, we saw about how to broadcast the webinar within the Zoho Meeting and the webinar application. But what if you want to have a real-time engagement on your session? Because Zoho Meeting provides an option to live streaming the option on YouTube. In order to have a wider reach for your product and maximize your audience, you can start streaming the webinar in your YouTube channel. So click on the live on YouTube button, which will start broadcast your webinar in your YouTube channel. So this live streaming webcast will allow your people to comment and ask the questions directly from your YouTube itself. Now coming back to the webinar window, you will also have the audio and video settings provided to change the microphone and the camera devices without ending the webinar. And here are the other preferences listed that can be enabled or disabled according to your choice. Now, let's learn about the visual feedback through live reactions. So moving back to the attendee screen, at the menu bar, the attendees will have an option to react and express their thoughts by sending out the emojis. So this will usually help you to learn about their reactions when you specifically provide a demo or a speech. Now coming back to the organizer screen, I'm going to show you how to start sharing it. So here we have a screen sharing option. To start sharing the screen, you can go for the entire screen sharing or a specific application sharing or else a Chrome tab sharing. Or if you'd like to share only a PDF or a PPT or a video file, you can go for the share material option. So here I have already uploaded some while scheduling the webinar. So when you start playing a video here, the attendees will be able to view and hear it.
Oh, I see. You're not afraid of the dark, but you're afraid of the monsters in the dark, hmm?
So once done with playing the video, if you'd like to have a pause on it, you can also go for pausing it and also have an option to start sharing it. So this is how you need to engage a webinar using Zoho Meeting tool. And once you have done with the webinar, you can click on the exit webinar button to end the webinar for all of your attendees. So as already discussed, once the session gets over, attendees will be redirected to the site as per the post webinar direction URL provided. Once the webinar gets over, coming back to the Zoho Meeting site, go for the analytics. And we have recently introduced the analytical report for online meeting. And let's see about it. Once the meeting or a webinar session gets over, you can get a detailed analytical view of the number of sessions conducted, duration, and the complete performance report of your participants. The current dashboard here provides a detailed chart explaining about the number of sessions as well as the date when it was conducted. So here you can sort the reports based on the host who has conducted it and also the date when it was performed. And here from the session history, you will get the total number of the participants who has joined the session and also helps you to calculate the level of dedication towards the meeting. So this will help you with the in and out time and the duration on how long they have stayed connected to the meeting. And if you want to access the reports in offline, you can either download the report as XLS or CSV file. Similarly, you can also obtain the reports for your webinar module as well. All right. So now we move on to the next tab, recordings. As of now, we saw on how to schedule and host the meetings and webinars. Now, let's learn about how to revisit the topic that you have discussed during the session. Here from my recordings, you can see the list of all the session recordings of your meetings and webinars separately. Here you can replay the recordings online using the play option and also share the recording link with your members who couldn't make it to your session. Here we have the accessibility permission for the recording, where you can decide whether you want to share the recording link with anyone, no one, or anyone in your organization. Now, coming to the offline access, we have provided an option to download the recording, where you can download it and save it on your computer. And also, we have come up with the bulk select option, where you can select the recordings in bulk and delete the recordings in mass. All right. So currently we saw about how to initiate the sessions from the web browsers. But what if you don't have a laptop or a desktop? So we're going to learn the other ways of joining the session. Zoho Meeting has iOS and Android app to get connected remotely when you don't have an access to a laptop or a desktop. You can use this Zoho Meeting mobile application to hold meetings, attend live webinars, participate in polls, make video calls, and much more. So, all this can be done from your Zoho Meeting mobile application. Now, let's see how you can set up your Zoho Meeting account and customize it as per your requirement. So here we step on to the last tab, settings. Under my settings, you can also set up the local information such as the time zone of your location by making it as a default format for the future meetings and webinars that you schedule. And moreover, we provide multi-language support system, which is an essential part to avoid the language barriers. So here we provide an option to choose 22 languages provided on the drop-down of your Zoho Meeting account. And we have recently introduced few local languages such as Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, Marathi, and Bangla. So below that, you can see an option to sync the meetings and webinars to your Google Calendar. For example, if you are an Outlook user but you want the events to be added on your personalized Gmail account, this option will be most useful for you. And below that, you can see the other preferences listed that can be enabled or disabled according to your choice. Because it is always a user based setting which will be available to all the users in your organization. Now, let's step on to the organization settings. Under the organization, you can promote your brand by adding the company name and logo to the email headers of invitations, reminders, and registration forms. And also, we have the custom domain feature where you can have a unique branded name on the URL that identifies your website. Please note that options provided under the Manage organization will be available only for the administrator. Now, let's step on to user management. From the user management, you can manage all the users and their respective profiles. Here, you can add a new user who has actually joined your company, and you can also be able to delete a user who has left your company. Through this tab, you can designate the roles of each user as well in order to maintain their organization hierarchy. Now, let's step on to departments. From the user management, this is a newly released feature that allows you to categorize your entire organization into small groups. So, this will help you to increase the ease of managing the users. Using the departments, you can create any number of departments and also add the users to any number of departments as per your requirement. Now, let's move on to email configuration. So this is a reply to email address to which the registrants of your webinar can reply to clarify their concerns. The reply to email address can be of your team member, department, or any other member in your organization who can make the answering process simple. Now, let's move on to the security. This tab will help you to anonymize all the personal data such as name, email address, IP address, and other registration information. And here from the action log viewer, you can also see the list of activities performed by the users and the date when it was performed. And we also have the data cleanup feature through which you can do a periodical removal of your older information, which is about your session reports, recordings, and other actions taken place. Now, moving on to the subscriptions tab, this will help you to get the current subscription details of your Zoho Meeting account where you can manage the same. Now, moving on to the integrations, Zoho Meeting provides integration with other Zoho products such as CRM, bookings, campaigns, mail, backstage, projects, sprints, connect, and flow. So, not only the integration with Zoho products, we also have the integration with third party major applications. We have already seen the Google Calendar sync with meetings and webinars from Zoho Meeting settings. The other third party integrations here are Microsoft Teams and Slack. Using these integrations, you can conduct instant meetings with your people directly from your Teams channel and from your Slack workspace. Now, moving on to the homepage of Zoho Meeting, at the top you will find a download icon where you can download the desktop app right from here. So, through the desktop app, you can overcome the browser limitation and you can also enjoy the session with better stability and optimization. And here we have another third party integration, that is Outlook. So the Zoho Meeting plugin for Microsoft Outlook can be downloaded in order to schedule the meetings directly from your Outlook account. Now, let's take a look at the latest release, which is the calendar. In addition to the creating sessions from user interface, you can also have the option of utilizing the calendar to ensure that your meetings and webinars are scheduled for the appropriate dates. Besides, our upcoming update will include the several new features that are currently being worked upon. First, let's see for webinar. A chat feature here to enable the communication between the organizer and the co-organizers will be available very shortly. And we are presently engaged in developing live audio transcription capabilities. Now, let's see the features commonly handled for both meeting and webinar. In collaboration with the OpenAI, Zoho Meeting will be soon integrated with Zia in order to obtain the keynotes for your session. And we're also going to launch the audio transcription once the meeting gets over. Now, it's time for some Q&A. Please ask your questions and here we have a person to clarify all your queries. In today's session, we have seen how to organize the webinar and conduct an online meeting. Kindly let us know if you have any questions about any of the features that I have mentioned today. And in the meanwhile, we're also going to see some of the frequently asked questions and the answers related to it. So here's the question on how to annotate during the meeting. The answer to the question is both the presenter and the participants can share the whiteboard through which you can annotate, draw, and sketch. And here comes the second question, which is related with whether you can make a call in Zoho Meeting. The answer is yes, because you can make a call using our Zoho Meeting application. Now let's see about it. Because we have introduced an option of the Zoho Meeting integration with Zoho Voice, through which you can have an option of receiving and make local and international business call all within Zoho Meeting. So here comes the calls portal, which will allow you to make a call right from the dial-in pad here. And moreover, you will also be able to engage on a conversation with two-way SMS using the same setup. All right, so here comes the last question, that is about security and privacy in online sessions. The answer is Zoho Meeting is absolutely secure because the tool offers multiple security features in order to keep the meetings safe from disruption. For example, we have already seen how to lock your meetings, and also we have the password protection enabled for all the meetings. And also, it encrypts the audio, video, and screen sharing information to keep it safe during the session.